Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to LaRouche PAC, and we'll put the website up on screen for folks coming up, LaRouchePAC.com, LaRouche PAC.com, and find all the documentation and videos. Lyndon LaRouche has been called a right-winger by the left. He's been called a left-winger by the right. Ronald Reagan, I looked this up when I heard it over 15 years ago. It was true. Called him, just incredibly smart on geopolitics. 2 CIA directors. Listen to what he had to say. He would do weekly briefings, flying his helicopter to the Langley, Virginia, and landing and having secret briefings with the CIA director. I mean, what they talked about was reportedly secret. That made George Bush Sr. jealous of him. So they set him up and threw him in the Hooskow as a political prisoner. And whenever I talk about government corruption, they go, oh, that's Lyndon LaRouche. People don't even know who he is. Young people sometimes, they just think, oh, that's like a dirty word or something. Of course, that has failed. The system's tried to do that. I don't necessarily agree with all of the solutions they come up with, but you cannot doubt their analysis of geopolitics and how it works is very, very accurate. And we're always honored to have Mr. LaRouche on. He's a World War II veteran, worked in all sorts of operations back then. He's 90 years old and is one of the most interesting people, I think, alive out there. I don't mean to get him on and throw a bunch of laurels at him. I just want folks to know he's very, very interesting. He's only with us for 2 segments. Then we got a bunch of other international news and Second Amendment news coming up. But I wanted to get him on because it was back last year he was on the air, and folks had pulled these clips up and pointed them out and warned of nuclear blackmail domestically, warned of currency devaluation, warned of mega crises if we didn't impeach Obama. Now they have started to devalue the U.S. credit rating, using the debt crisis to bring us into this current situation, and really blame people concerned about debt with the insolvency of the Anglo-American banking establishment that itself is completely zombie. So I want to get him to talk about geopolitically where we are, what's happening with the big banks, what just happened with the shutdown, where things are going. And so we're joined by Lyndon LaRouche. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Good to be with you.
Okay, sir, so go ahead. You've got the floor. Where are we geopolitically? What's happening in the banking sector? Why are big banks saying you're not going to be able to get your money out of the country? What's happening?
We're going through actual, if it goes through any further, we're going through a mass rate of death in the United States. It's going on in Europe also, similarly. But this, when the trend and the policy of this president, Barack Obama, is mass murder. There's no question about it. This is Hitler kind stuff.
Quantify that, sir, because you've been predicting exactly what's now happening and them using the crisis they've engineered to bring in total control, the gear up of Homeland Security against the American people. Mr. LaRouche, what's happening?
What's happened is that our government has been taken over by a secret government, which is associated with President Obama. And this has gone through one step and another. We've just gone through another step, which is actually really mass murder of citizens of the United States. The only term you can call for it. This is, of course, Obama's been up to this in his first year in office. And I attacked him on that, and as other people had exposed him in his health care policies, were in the direction of Hitler-style mass murder. And that's even more so right now. The most recent development by the Obama is in the direction of genocide. Just plainly, Hitler-style. Hitler started on a regularly small place, small considerations, but it began to build up more and more and more. And what just happened to the president's actions now, he's taken another step deeper for greater rates of mass murder of our own citizens.
That's right. For those that don't know, IMF World Bank loans and high rates are on record, killing tens of millions a year worldwide, and now that's expanding into Europe, people starving, riots, you name it, more and more of that coming here. But, sir, I remember 6 years ago when Obama, or 7 years ago, was running, and some of the folks over at LaRouchePAC.com and also at the publication going to meetings with Obama's health care head, even before he was elected, exposing the plan for death panels, exposing the plan for ration care, exposing it was actually a Trojan horse, not even real socialist health care for people, but a fascist health care system. You were, and your organization, were the first, people can go see the videos on your site, I was just remembering them, to expose how bad it was before the bill was even written or introduced. Break down what was really in the bill and how your team knew what was in it.
Well, that's my specialty. That's what I do, is not just on this subject, but other subjects. I'm concerned with the world economy. I'm a specialist in forecasting in that area, and I have a lot of influence in that area, naturally. How big it is, or how big it is personally, is not relevant. The fact is that I'm on the case where other people have not, and more people realize again and again that I'm on the case. I could expand on that, but it's that simple. I mean, this is what I do. I'm a forecaster. I'm an economist. I do a lot of forecasting. I'm probably one of the most successful forecaster in terms of very specific kinds of forecasts.
When did you first start to work with international intelligence and the CIA? Wasn't it in the OSS? I mean, how did you, because I find this fascinating for your view on the world, 90 years old, all the things you've seen. How did you get to where you were giving weekly briefings to the CIA directors in the 1980s? And what did that inside track give you on the different factions in the system?
Well, I can say it goes back to the 1980s. In 1971, for example, I first I'd made a forecast of what was going to happen. I'd made it actually in 1968. And it hit. I had made the forecast. Everybody else in the forecasting business had said it was not possible. What happened in that 1971 collapse? And from that point, I was challenged by a British representative of the British system on this case, and I defeated him in a debate which we had in Queen's College. And this thing stuck, and from that point on, I was I'd been a forecaster and so forth earlier, but this thing established my intention as being sort of worldwide. And people began to get very excited about what I was doing because I was getting attention, and the facts I was giving were the facts. So that was always...
Sir, give us the facts now on where we are geopolitically, financially, and what's happening in the markets, what's happening with the system blaming the global derivatives debt on people that are concerned about it. I mean, they're trying to blame those of us now that have been concerned for what they've done.
No, there's no lack of evidence on this thing. This is what has happened is take the healthcare policy. That's the thing that's right on the table right now, Obamacare. And that is murderous. There's no question about it. It's mass murderous and intentionally so. It goes together with, Obama has always been, while president, has been close to the Queen of England. And the Queen of England has a standing policy now, which has been going on for some time, saying that we have to reduce the human population on this planet from 7 billion people down to less than 1. That is her avowed policy. Obama is an exponent of that same policy. He's a supporter of that same policy. As a matter of fact, his position as president was a result of the British Empire's support for him, the financing of his campaign and so forth. So this has been that policy all the way through. And the point is reduce the human population. If you go back earlier, it didn't really start with Obama. You go back in the death of, one of our presidents who was actually murdered. And so we've had this, and since that time, from the middle of the 1960s, we've been on a course downhill. It starts out rather small, but the death of Kennedy, of John F. Kennedy, opened up a new region. We got into this war in Indochina, which is a stupid thing to get into, which MacArthur had warned us against quite accurately. And this is, it's gone step by step by step. If you look at the economy, the U.S. economy, in terms of per capita terms, in terms of other considerations, has been on the descent ever since the beginning of the war in Indochina. And it started really as a result of the Kennedy being assassinated. So from that time on, the people of the United States have been getting poorer and poorer and poorer.
Sure, even before the 1992 Rio summit where they called for a post-industrial world as the global policy and even thanked Ted Turner and Prince Philip and others for helping develop the strategy out of the Royal Commission on Population that they had adopted it from 1949, that I first learned about reading your publications and then went to the library and indeed was able to find that publication for worldwide eugenics, cutting off resources and genocide. Long before the term Agenda 21 was coined at Rio, your writings, your researchers' writings, documented their program to create world government, not to create peace, but to systematically destroy nation states and cut off resources. We're now going under this in the West. Is there any way to reverse it?
Yes, there is. Right now, you will probably notice that the U.S. population has been increasingly angry. The citizenry has been increasingly angry against Obama and wants him out of office. He manages by certain kinds of support to stay in office. He should have been expelled a long time ago for what he does. But that's been going on. We are now in a position where, with this last legislation that he put through, he actually is condemning a great number of our people to death, early death, by his so-called healthcare policies and related economic policies which affect healthcare, his insurance policies. These things are mass murderers. This has been going on as a direction ever since shortly after Kennedy was assassinated.
And no one can deny it. Everything they're doing is to shut down small businesses, small farms, small factories, shutting down our power plants. They are completely engaging in warfare against the United States. What is the end-game strategy there, Mr. LaRouche? Well,
the end game is that it was the Queen's policy. The Queen of England has been the leader in this policy, saying the necessity is to reduce the human population of the planet from 7 billion people approximately to less than 1. That's her policy. It's what she said again and again and again. That's the policy of her regime, of the monarchy, is genocide. So that Hitler was not new on this thing exactly, but on genocide. But the Queen's policy is in accord with the population policies of Adolf Hitler in the early period of his regime.
You were on early in the year, I think it was in January, people can pull it up, and you said we're headed towards nuclear war with China and Russia starting around Syria. And since then, that's become the headlines, but the Obama regime has backed off for now. What's happening militarily? Well,
the policy is Russia has played an interesting role in this because it seemed for a while that Russia was a has-been power. I don't think it's a great power right now. I mean, it's on hard times, its own regime. But its influence has been accepted by other governments as well as the Russian government itself. And its effects, like China, for example, is watching this situation. Japan is aware of it, and so forth. So we're aware that this problem exists. We are actually now, unless let me put it this way clearly, I think make it clean. If we don't throw Obama out of office soon, and there's every reason to throw him out of office, preemptively, he deserves to be thrown out of office, not only for his sake, but for the sake of our people in the United States. If his policies, as he's just put the new stage through into operation, if that policy is allowed, you're going to see open Hitler-style genocide applied to a large section of the population who is considered not fit to survive, not fit to live.
And then meanwhile, they're doing everything they
unfit to live.
Wow.
And that's what he's done. That's what his legislation is right now on his new health care legislation.
Exactly. I know, I've read it. It's unbelievably Hitlerian, to say the least. It's Malthusian. Let me ask you this question. They're doing everything they can to block technological development, clean technologies. They want this neo-feudalistic system, as you say, under the British Crown on record. They developed the program. So it is their program that's being followed, whether they're completely running it or not. If this goes through and they're able to carry this out, it's terrible. But I don't see their plan actually working, but I do see it causing a giant World War III type scenario as the world finally stands up against the people that run America and the UK. And I just can't believe we're going to allow ourselves to be the bad guys in this. I see the people standing up, and if we don't repudiate Obama and impeach him and arrest his minions, then it will set the precedent to allow them to continue the collision course towards World War III.
Well, you've got a situation now in which you can fairly say that you have the American population, the U.S. population, the citizens, are more and more enraged against Obama and want him out. Now, the thing that there are some people, including Democrats and so forth, some Democrats are guilty of this sort of thing. But the significant thing is that people in the main, except those who benefit from Wall Street, it's only as Wall Street is the only factor in the U.S. economy which really keeps Obama still in office. He couldn't have made it otherwise. Now, what you have across the nation, we have an explosion of determination, a rising tide of determination. Throw this guy out now while we're still alive. That's the mood out there, and it's increasing at a rapid rate.
Well, I'm finishing my film, Obama Deception 2, soon, and that's basically, while making the film, the summation I came to. He's not just another puppet. He cannot be allowed to stay in, because in another 2 years, they'll totally wreck us anyways. But regardless, we cannot allow them to commit all these crimes and not get in trouble, or the precedent's set to where we are a fascist regime. And now the banks are moving to keep people's money. I mean, this is getting scary.
Well, that has been the intention all the way through. What has happened recently, as popular opinion in particular in this nation, has recognized that, and it's recognized it not only because of what is happening inside the United States, but they're recognizing what has been happening in Europe. The situation in Europe is much more advanced in terms of pro-genocide trends than in the United States yet. But we're going very rapidly in that direction, and Obama is the specific driver of that crime. I mean, this is a guy waiting for his Nuremberg trial. That's what this president is.
Is he? I mean, I understand he's a figurehead of this whole takeover and enjoys it and is part of it. But and I understand it's important to bring him down, to bring the whole corrupt cabal down. But specifically, a lot of top people I know, they say Obama is particularly evil, and that he actually enjoys all this, and that he is actually calling a lot of shots. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Sure, it's accurate. You could express it in other ways, but from the standpoint of popular opinion, insofar as popular opinion has that view, the view is valid.
Other key points.
I would say that I'm concerned about getting back our laws, because what we have now is not good. It is not something we should tolerate. We have to throw this government out of office now. Impeachment time, fuzz and all, is due now.
And that's an understatement. I mean, I cannot believe they're openly running torture ships off the coast. I can't believe they're openly training in Army manuals. I'm sure you've seen this. This is official news. They actually badmouth the founding fathers and say they were bad people, and they're training for war against anybody that is pro-national system, pro-liberty, pro-freedom. It's not even about left or right. I mean, it's cartoonish how officially authoritarian Obama is. I can't even believe that they're this out of control.
They are out of control. But you're talking about something worse than Hitler. Hitler was, reached very terrible levels of abuses.
But he didn't have 10,000 nuclear weapons.
This is worse.
How is it worse?
Well, what you're headed for, potentially, which is the only factor of restraint in terms of the international situation, is the fact that we were on the edge in the Syrian operation. We were on the edge of thermonuclear war globally. Just take the situation of Russia, Russia's role in respect to Syria. Then you had the various kinds of operations back and forth on this sort of thing. And if you look at the history of Obama, with the crimes he's committed in office publicly and gotten by with that, you understand two things. First of all, that he's a criminal, really, by any standard of decency, and he's a great liar.
Aren't they also madmen? Because as you just stated, even General Dempsey, who's known as a pro-war guy most of the time, that's why they put him in, he went at midnight and told Obama, the military is not going to stand with you. And I'm not for military coups, but if it's stopping like Hitler, like, Operation Valkyrie, at least non-violently, politically saying no, I have confirmed, it's even come out in the news, that the military basically blocked that operation a few weeks ago, saying this will probably lead to nuclear war. So that shows me how insane the Anglo-American leaders are.
Well, absolutely. That's understood internationally. That's where we are. This man must be thrown out of office. The time for impeachment now. Summary impeachment now.
Sir, what about the other elites? Because I know you have your finger on the pulse. I mean, they're not all this insane, are they? I mean, why have they gotten so reckless? I mean, don't they know about Napoleon and Hitler and people? I mean, that's...
I think with people who are Wall Street oriented, generally, I think, are not exactly civilized, to put the kind of structure on it. And they're worried about my money. You get this. You get the whole Wall Street crowd. My money. And you have all the people that go along with it. And you've got Republicans, going along with this their way. You have members of the Democratic Party, leaders in the Congress, who are pushing the same thing. So we're coming to a collision course. And the thing to worry about is, are we going to have a bloody show inside the United States over this issue, this crime that's being committed under the leadership of Obama? Or are we going to stop it? Are we going to intervene and throw this guy out of office? Now, if we throw him out of office, we will probably also do some things to some of these swindlers on Wall Street who have ruined and are murdering people virtually with their policies. But we have to get back to our Constitution. This government is no longer operating on the basis of the federal Constitution, but directly opposite to it. The time for impeachment is now.
That's right. It's working for a foreign combine. And this is how Max Kaiser, who worked at the highest levels, even with Soros' son in Wall Street, he described them as suicide bankers. He said they would blow the world up if they got all the money, even though they'd be dead. It is an attitude of just craven greed. But on top of it, it's worse because they're not even thinking about the larger ramifications. It's just a pure mindlessness, and it's not free market. It's backed up with taxpayer money, so they've been emboldened. They are insane.
Well, this is sort of a Saudi-British operation, which is doing all this. Is not, actually 9/11 was a product of a Saudi-British operation. And they've got these special gags on people who know the facts about 9/11. But 9/11 was a part of this process. And it was a British-Saudi operation. And that's the fact.
But the British government and the Saudis, they're not going to survive World War III.
But that is not an important question, I think. That's because the Saudis also can be dispensed with under certain conditions. No, the question is, we have to deal with the economic question, the economic policy.
Okay, Lyndon LaRouche, can you do 5 more minutes with us, sir?
Sure.
I've got to go to break for 1 minute. We'll start the next hour, and then we're going to get into some other issues. But, man, I tell you, you hear all this stuff, and it sounds wild. It's absolutely on target. And all I do is research this info. We are in so much danger, folks.
Is it not, my king, time to spring the trap?
No, we must desecrate the soul and the flesh of the Creator's creation.
The chain of life broken forever.
Folks, Lennon LaRouche is our guest, LaRouchePack.com, and I got to tell you, I'd probably read 100 history books or more by the time I was 12 years old, but the more you know, the more you don't know. And then by the time I was probably 16, 17 and first saw their quarterly intelligence review and was reading it, I knew so much history. I was like, oh, I've read this, I've read that. It was like most of it I knew was accurate. The parts I didn't know was accurate because I just didn't have that historical knowledge yet. It was gray area for me because I hadn't discovered it separately for myself yet. But the way they put it all together and what they lay out is really helped me understand how the world works. And the funny part is, from the John Birch Society angle, which people can claim is connected to whatever, they told a lot of the truth of what was going on. But I think when you get to the end of the day, there isn't really a left or right. Are you pro-humanity, pro-civilization, or are you pro-war economy, genocide, death control? And we got 4 minutes left, Lennon LaRouche. Thank you for your time. Make the point you were saying about what we need to do, solutions now with the economy, ideas, how we stop this madness.
First of all, impeach this president. That's the first thing you have to do. And the ability, the grounds for doing so more than richly exists. All right, then we have to think about how are we going to take the economy, for example, the European economy is collapsing. The transatlantic region is a disaster area in terms of economy. My view is, I'll just summarize it this way, there's one thing we could do, and that is if we could start a program of recovery, which could be started now with getting this guy out. We would then think of taking our middle of the United States, the Mississippi West area. We've lost our food supply. Our food supply has been destroyed by this operation, by these kinds of operations. So we've got to get the food supply in there. We've got to rebuild some of our economy. We don't have the ability to maintain our own population. That's what's happened. Now, then what do? Well, we go across to the Asian region, Indo-Asia. We cross there. We start again thermonuclear fusion as a driver program. That is absolutely indispensable for the survival of civilization on the planet as a whole. It will take time to get there, maybe probably 10 years before we could actually... But
giant, peaceful Manhattan projects, advanced technologies, cleaner energies, R&D, the opposite of what the neo-feudalists want.
Yes, well, there are very specific things. Thermonuclear fusion, which has been suppressed. We have a miniature version of thermonuclear fusion, which is now. But what is required as thermonuclear fusion to ensure the survival of mankind on this planet is something we've got to get. But we have to start the program now, get the program moving, a recovery program immediately. Throw Obama out. Agree to go ahead with the recovery program immediately, get our food supply, which has been destroyed in the middle of the United States.
And if we just back off from World War III, the whole world will give a sigh of relief. It'll create confidence and investment and true globalism, people working together.
Absolutely. It is possible. It's something I'm very much concerned about. My associates, for example, are involved with this. We're concerned with this program. Thermonuclear fusion is an absolute requirement for the preservation of the human species.
Okay, well, yes, sir. Thank you so much for your gracious time. LaRouchePack.com, Lennon LaRouche. Are there other sites or other things you would point out for people to visit?
Yes.
I know that you've also got the publication side. People can link through right there at LaRouchePack.com. Thank you so much for the time. All right, we'll talk to him again in the future. Lennon LaRouche, ladies and gentlemen. That guy is really interesting. Reagan thought he was interesting. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. Are we choosing our own destiny, or has it been pre-selected for us?
As we've moved through history, every great leader has had to understand the potential of information.
Billions of dollars have been spent privately and publicly, looking at how to tap into your psyche.
From compulsory state education to the Hollywood media brainwashing machine, we are kept in perpetual bondage to the ideas that shape our actions.
When somebody obscures that feedback loop between you observing and testing it out and verifying it, they can take total control of your awareness.
All of this is happening so fast, you need to be ahead of the game.
How to engineer the opinion of the American people so that they would not only endorse but demand a war.
Oh, there's another one. Another plane just hit.
State of Mind, because there's a war on for your mind. Get your copy of State of Mind, the movie, at Infowars.com. And remember, every order at InfoWarsStore.com receives a free citizen rulebook.